They called it a game of chance. But I never left anything to chance. From the very first card dealt in this room, I knew exactly who would win and who would be made to pay. I was born on these docks. My father unloaded crates for pennies his entire life. He broke his back every single day and got nothing back. That taught me one thing: obedience is poverty. I was 17 when they found me. I had just broken 3 ribs of a man twice my size. The old man in the pinstripe suit looked at me and said, "You belong with us?" I already knew it. The oath was simple: loyalty above family, silence above truth. I dipped my finger in the cup and held it there. From that moment, I did not belong to myself. I belonged to something larger. My first year in the family, I fought 12 times on these streets. I won 12 times. The Oyabun noticed. He moved me from the alleys to the back office. That was the real beginning. The gambling halls were my classroom. I watched every hand, every face, every hesitation. I learned to read what a man truly wants before he even knows it himself. That knowledge was everything. By 30, I controlled every underground casino between Osaka and Kobe. One single Friday night, my tables moved 100 million yen. 5% on every bet went directly to me. Money is the shadow of power. The real currency was fear. One phone call from me, and a man's entire business would vanish overnight. His family would vanish. That is not a threat. That is accounting. Politicians were my easiest investment. A thick envelope slid across a white tablecloth, one polite bow, and billions of yen in construction contracts became ours before dessert arrived. In 2 years, we controlled 14 construction firms across Japan. Every bridge, every highway, every government project ran through us. The government built Japan. We built the government. Methamphetamine came in containers stamped as consumer electronics. Heroin moved through Southeast Asia like a quiet river finds the sea. We did not think of it as poison. We thought of it as margins. We owned restaurants, talent studios, travel agencies. Every yen of drug money passed through our legitimate businesses and came out the other side clean and perfectly accounted for on paper. One container ship could carry 3 full years of street product, hidden inside machinery, labeled as industrial parts. Customs officials stamped the manifest without a second glance. Every time, Hawaii was our bridge between worlds. Drugs moved east, weapons moved west. The Americans needed our product. We needed their connections. The ocean changes absolutely nothing about the nature of business. In that room, we shook hands over whiskey and divided the Pacific between us. A gentleman's agreement with no documents, no lawyers, no signatures, only consequences for those who broke it. At our peak, we had 45,000 men across 36 prefectures, 2,500 businesses. Politicians, judges, police chiefs, all of them understood clearly who held real authority. Every boss is chosen in silence. No applause, no speeches, no ceremony of words. You bow to the altar, you bow to the men, they bow to you. After that exchange, your word becomes absolute law. We were not criminals in their eyes. We were a necessary arrangement, the kind that every stable and ordered society quietly requires and quietly maintains, but never once admits it has. When a rival refused to pay tribute, we did not argue or negotiate. We invited him to a meeting he could not refuse. What happened after that meeting stayed between him and his own conscience. He was a proud man. He had led his clan for 20 years, built it from nothing just as I had. But in that room, under that single hanging bulb, pride becomes a very expensive luxury to hold on to. Some debts are settled with money. Others require an entirely different kind of payment. In our world, the method of payment always depended on the precise size and nature of the original insult. The War of '85 killed 26 men in 4 months. Both sides bled heavily. I lost men I had trusted completely. When the smoke finally cleared, only one name remained on the door. I told my captains, "This is not a war. This is a correction. We are not fighting for territory. We are restoring the proper order of things. Their order has ended. Ours has now begun. Remember that. That year we lost 8 men we could not replace. Not soldiers, brothers, men who knew everything about you and chose silence without being asked. Those are the ones that stay with you forever." A name appeared in a report where it should never have appeared. A name I recognized immediately. One of my own men had spoken to people he should never have been within 100 meters of. I gave every man in my organization one thing they could not find anywhere else, a place where they mattered and belonged. Betraying that was not an act of courage. It was simply an act of stupidity. They sent 40 officers for one man. I walked to the car without a word, without a single gesture, because panic is reserved for men who did not see this moment coming long before it arrived. 11 hours in that room. I said nothing, not one word, in 11 hours, because silence is the only language they cannot present as evidence against you when the case finally reaches a courtroom. 3 years in a cell, the size of a closet. I read every book in that library at least twice over, and I planned every detail of what came next. A man who stops planning is already as good as dead. Even in prison, men kept their distance, not because anyone instructed them to, because some forms of authority cannot be taken away with a court sentence. Authority lives in the body itself. Inside, I had nothing but time and uninterrupted thought. I understood for the very first time that I had never stopped to think about what came after all of this. So I finally started thinking about after. The day I walked out, my men were already waiting at the gate, a suit on a hanger in the back seat of the car. 3 years of reports on my desk before nightfall. Nothing had stopped. Nothing ever stops. 3 years of paper read in a single hour. The organization had moved without me, kept breathing without me, but breathing and truly living are two very different things. I was back. Now we would live. People always ask what keeps a man in power for 30 years. Not violence. Violence is always the last resort of the unprepared. Power is patience. Power is silence. Power is knowing which door to leave closed. I never made a single decision out of anger, not once across 30 years. Every act that appeared to be violence was in fact pure mathematics. Cold, clean, calculated. The numbers always added up correctly. By the new century, our operations had expanded to South Korea, Taiwan, and the Philippines. Business does not recognize national borders. Only profit margins recognize where one country ends and another begins. In 2001, 1,400 ATM withdrawals across South Africa in a single night. Stolen card data used and discarded within seconds. 1.8 billion yen. Clean and completely untraceable by morning light. New laws, new designations. They called us a specified conflict organization. 5 or more members meeting together was now itself a criminal act. The state had finally decided to fight back in earnest. I told them, we adapt or we disappear entirely. Every man at that table had witnessed what happened to organizations that refused to move with the times. I was not prepared to become their cautionary example. When the earthquake came in '95, the government response was slow and overwhelmed. We had trucks moving through Kobe within hours, food, water, blankets. Nobody asked who sent them. Nobody needed to ask. I look at this harbor and I see my father's broken hands. I see the boy standing on these same docks who swore he would never break under anything. Every empire I built began with that one promise. Every empire I built was paid for in someone else's blood at some point along the way. I knew that clearly and completely. Every man who ever built anything real knew it too. The question is whether you sleep at night. I visited the temple every year on the same date without exception. Not to pray. I am not a man who prays for outcomes. I went to remember the names I carry, names that never appeared in any newspaper. Debts do not expire on their own. A man who owes you and relocates to the quiet suburbs believes that distance is itself a form of payment. It is not. Distance only changes the address of the conversation. A man in my position cannot afford the vulnerability that illness represents to those watching. I sat in that office and listened carefully to every word. Then I made the necessary arrangements, as I always have done. Every empire requires succession. The man who cannot name his successor has built nothing that will last. He has only rented power until the exact moment his hands can no longer hold the weight of it. They said I was finished. They said the new laws had finally broken me and everything I built. Japan is always changing. The rules change. The players change. But the game itself never changes. And I have always known the game. I never asked for forgiveness from anyone. I never offered explanations to anyone. This is not a confession, and it was never meant to be one. This is a record, and records, unlike men, do not disappear.